There is a physical weight sitting in the center of your chest right now, a specific type of tightness that constricts every time you think about that one task you've been avoiding. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. You might be watching this to distract yourself from it, hoping for a quick trick to make the feeling go away. But deep down, you likely feel something worse than stress. You feel like you are broken. You tell yourself that if you were just disciplined enough, or smart enough, or hardworking enough, you would have done it by now. But here is the part most people miss, and it is the single most important thing you will hear today. That feeling isn't laziness. Laziness feels comfortable. Laziness is enjoying a nap without guilt. What you are feeling is an internal war, and you are losing because you are fighting against your own biology with the wrong weapons. If we want to fix this, we have to stop treating procrastination like a character flaw and start treating it like what it actually is, which is a misfiring survival mechanism. To understand why you can't send that email or start that project, you have to look at a tiny almond-shaped structure deep inside your brain called the amygdala. This structure has been refining itself for millions of years with one singular obsessive job, which is to keep you alive. It scans your environment for threats, and for most of human history, a threat was a predator in the tall grass or a hostile tribe. But your brain hasn't had a software update to match the modern world. To your amygdala, the uncertainty of a difficult project or the potential embarrassment of a bad presentation reads as the exact same level of mortal danger as a lion staring you down. When you think about the work you need to do, your amygdala screams that it is unsafe. It triggers a fight or flight response, flooding your system with stress hormones. And this is where the risk quietly increases, because you have another part of your
brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logic and long-term planning. You would think this rational part of your brain would step in and say, "Calm down, it's just a spreadsheet," but it doesn't. Instead, because the survival alarm is so loud, your logic center gets hijacked. It starts working for the fear. It stops being your coach and becomes your lawyer, drafting incredibly convincing arguments for why you shouldn't work right now. You know these arguments intimately. They sound like, "I need to do more research before I start," or "I'm too tired to do a good job right now. I'll wake up early and do it." University of Rochester researchers have looked into this, and the data suggests these aren't rational thoughts. They are rationalizations. They are sophisticated lies your brain invents to justify the chemical urge to run away. You aren't procrastinating because you don't want to succeed. You are procrastinating because your brain is genuinely trying to protect you from the perceived pain of failure, judgment, or confusion. That assumption that you just need to try harder sounds logical until you look closer at the chemical fuel tank of your brain. We need to talk about dopamine, but we need to correct a massive misconception. Pop culture tells you dopamine is the pleasure molecule, but that is scientifically inaccurate. Dopamine is not about pleasure, it is about drive. It is the craving, the pursuit, the friction that pushes you forward. Neuroscientists distinguish between two distinct systems that are likely warring inside your head right now. There is phasic dopamine, and there is tonic dopamine. Phasic dopamine is the spike. It's what you get when you check a notification, eat sugar, or watch a 15-second video. It is explosive, immediate, and fades instantly, leaving you wanting another hit. Tonic dopamine is different. It is the low-level background hum that allows you to sustain attention on a boring task for hours. It's what kept
our ancestors hunting for days without giving up. The problem with the modern environment is that phasic dopamine spikes hijack your tonic baseline. Imagine you have a garden hose. That's your tonic motivation. But someone keeps kinking the hose every 30 seconds to spray water somewhere else. That is what social media and constant distraction do to your neurochemistry. Every time you feel the stress of a task and immediately switch to your phone to soothe that anxiety, you are training your brain. You are literally engaging in neuroplasticity, wiring your nervous system to believe that the solution to stress is distraction. You aren't just wasting time, you are practicing the habit of giving up. You are teaching your brain that when things get difficult, the correct biological response is to seek a cheap dopamine spike. This is why the advice to just focus is dangerous. It ignores the fact that your brain's reward system has been systematically dismantled. So, how do we reverse this? We have to stop fighting the symptoms and go to the root. The first step is aggressive clarity. Procrastination thrives in the abstract. When a task is vague, like write the report or clean the house, it feels like a giant, shadowy monster to your amygdala. We need to pull that fear out of the dark. I want you to think of the thing you are avoiding right now. Don't just think about it. Identify the specific emotion attached to it. Are you afraid it won't be perfect? Are you afraid people will judge it? Are you afraid you aren't smart enough to figure it out? There is a fascinating mechanism that happens when you write these fears down by hand. It engages the motor cortex and forces communication with the logical centers of your brain. When you write, "I am afraid to start because I don't know the first step," you take a vague existential threat and turn it into a concrete problem. A problem can be solved. A feeling can only be felt. By naming the fear, you strip it of its power
to paralyze you. But we have to take this a step further, because naming the fear isn't enough if you don't change how you view the consequences. Most of us are terrified of the pain of taking action, the boredom, the frustration, the effort. But we are surprisingly comfortable with the pain of inaction, because that pain is distant. It's a problem for future you. We need to flip this equation. You need to learn how to be afraid of the right thing. I want you to visualize, clearly and without judgment, what your life looks like in 6 months if you change absolutely nothing. If you keep giving in to the dopamine spikes, if you keep letting the amygdala win. Imagine the stagnation. Imagine the opportunities that have quietly closed their doors while you are scrolling. Now extend that timeline to 3 years. Who have you become? Or more painfully, who have you failed to become? This isn't about shaming yourself. It's about recalibrating your threat detection system. The research shows that humans are terrible at estimating future regret. We think we will have time to catch up, but time is not a renewable resource. When you make the pain of staying the same greater than the pain of change, you suddenly find the energy to move. However, even with the right mindset, your environment can still defeat you. You are not stronger than your environment. If your workspace is cluttered, if your phone is within arm's reach, if your browser has 50 tabs open, you are asking your depleted tonic dopamine system to fight a battle it cannot win. You have to design a space where the good behavior is the path of least resistance. This means removing the friction from the work and adding friction to the distraction. If you need to write, the document should be the only thing on your screen. If you are addicted to your phone, it shouldn't just be face down, it should be in another room. You might think you have the willpower to resist the buzz in your pocket, but every time you
resist a temptation, you burn mental energy. You are depleting the very fuel you need to do your work. By removing the option, you save that energy for the task at hand. But there is a hidden enemy that often survives even the best environmental design. A subtle psychological trap that disguises itself as high standards but is actually a paralyzing force. It's called perfectionism, and it is the sophisticated cousin of procrastination. Perfectionism tells you that if you can't do it perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. It tells you that you need a 4-hour block of uninterrupted time to start. It tells you that the conditions must be ideal. These are lies. The conditions will never be ideal. The imperfect minutes rule challenges this directly. The goal is to lower the bar so much that your amygdala doesn't even notice you've started. You commit to doing 2 minutes of terrible work. Not good work, terrible work. You give yourself permission to write a bad paragraph, to sketch a clumsy design, to write a messy email draft. Why does this work? Because the hardest part of any task is the static friction of starting. Once you are in motion, physics takes over. The Zeigarnik effect is a psychological phenomenon that states our brains hate unfinished loops. Once you open the file and type a sentence, your brain creates a subconscious tension to close that loop. It wants to finish what it started. By permitting yourself to be imperfect, you bypass the fear of judgment and trigger the natural human desire for completion. But this brings us to the most critical component, the engine that powers all of this, which is your physical energy. You can have the best time management system in the world, but if your biological battery is empty, you will fail. Your brain is an organ. It consumes roughly 20% of your body's metabolic energy. When you are sleep-deprived, dehydrated, or running on sugar spikes and crashes, your body goes into energy conservation mode.
Here is why that matters for procrastination. The prefrontal cortex, the part of you that has discipline, is energetically expensive. The amygdala, the part that wants to run away and hide, is cheap and automatic.
When you are tired, your brain cuts power to the expensive executive functions first. It literally becomes harder to say no to impulses. This isn't a character flaw, it is physiology. If you are consistently procrastinating, you don't just need a planner, you need sleep. You need to move your body to drive blood flow to your head. You need to stop treating your energy like an infinite resource and start treating it like a strategic asset. This leads us to the practical strategy of the dopamine game. Since we know your brain is hunting for rewards, we need to structure your day to use that against itself. We call this artificial scarcity. Right now, you probably give yourself rewards, like checking your phone, watching TV, or eating a snack, for free. You get the prize without the effort. You need to flip this. Nothing is free. You have to lock your rewards behind a gate of effort. Choose one single difficult task, not 3, just 1. Set a timer. Tell yourself that you cannot access the world. No texts, no news, no snacks, until that timer rings. By restricting the fun things, you make them more valuable. And more importantly, you start to rewire the pathway in your brain that says, effort leads to reward. Right now, your brain thinks avoidance leads to reward. We have to break that connection manually. But even with energy and strategy, there is a psychological contract you are breaking every day, and it is destroying your self-trust. Every time you say, I will do it tomorrow, and then you don't, you are teaching your brain that your word means nothing. You are eroding your own credibility. If a friend lied to you every single day for a year, you wouldn't trust them. Yet this is exactly the relationship you have built with yourself. To fix this, we
need to implement the external contract. Procrastination thrives in secrecy. It loves the dark. When nobody knows you are supposed to be working, it is easy to hide. You need to drag your goals into the light. Tell someone. Commit to a deadline that involves another human being. When you involve social pressure, you activate a different neural circuit. The fear of letting someone else down is often stronger than the desire to protect yourself. Use that. And this brings us to the deepest level of change. This is the part that isn't about tips or hacks. It is about identity. Most chronic procrastinators have internalized a label. You tell yourself, I am a procrastinator. You wear it like a heavy coat. But you need to understand that procrastination is something you do, not something you are. You need to shift your identity from someone who acts based on feelings to someone who acts based on principle. Think of the concept of the warrior's mindset, or the professional. An amateur waits for inspiration. An amateur works only when they feel good. A professional acts because it is their job. You don't have to feel like doing it. In fact, you probably won't. The feeling of motivation often comes after you start, not before. Action generates momentum, not the other way around. When you start acting before you feel ready, you begin to rewrite your story. You start to see yourself as the kind of person who does hard things. And this creates a positive feedback loop. The more you do, the more you trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the less fear you feel. The alarm in your amygdala gets quieter because it learns that you can handle the threat. So here is where we stand. You know now that this isn't about being lazy. You know it's a battle between your ancient survival brain and your modern goals. You know that you need to name your fears, manage your dopamine, protect your energy, and stop waiting for permission to start. The video is about to end, and this is
The dangerous moment. Because right now, you have a spike of motivation. You feel like you understand the problem, but understanding is not solving. In 5 minutes, that feeling will fade, and you will be left with a choice. You can click on another video, looking for another answer, feeding that phasic dopamine loop and proving to your brain that you are still stuck. Or you can close this tab. You can put your phone in the other room. You can sit down, feel the discomfort, look it in the eye, and do 2 minutes of imperfect work. The life you want, the version of you that you visualized earlier, the one who is proud, capable, and free, is waiting for you. But they are not waiting in the future. They are waiting in the very next decision you make. Don't let them down.